歡迎大家出席今日嘅簡。
Welcome to the press briefing. With us, Dr. Chang Shuk Kwan, Head of Communicable Disease Branch, Center for Health Protection, and Dr. Gladys Kwan, Chief Manager, Hospital Authority. They will brief us on the situation at TMHK and the newly confirmed cases. Dr. Kwan, please. Good afternoon. Currently, there are 1,516 patients in hospital. 201 are newly confirmed cases. Of the patients in isolation facilities, 420 are staying in isolation beds, 74 are staying in Tier 2 isolation wards, 433 are staying in the North Lantau Hospital, Hong Kong Infection Control Center. A total of 152 were newly confirmed cases. Yesterday, 3 new patients were in critical condition, 7 were in serious condition. Of the patients staying in hospital, there are a total of 23 in critical condition and 25 in serious condition. 6 of the patients are staying in intensive care. 2 new cases of deaths were reported, including 3 males and 1 female, aged 61 to 87. 1 of the patients came from a residential care home. The 2 patients were not fully vaccinated. And I'd like to provide details on these 4 fatalities. First, an 87-year-old female. She lived with her family. She received 3 doses of a vaccine. She had cardio arrhythmia and signs of dementia. And on July the 31st, she felt fatigue and she suffered a loss of appetite, and she sought medical attention at the A&E ward. She tested positive to COVID, and subsequently she was admitted to hospital. And on the same day, she experienced stomach ache as well. And upon a CT scan, a rupture was found in her colon, and a surgery was not recommended given her unstable condition. Her peritonitis worsened and she passed away yesterday. The next patient was a 75-year-old male. He lived with his family. She also received 3 doses of a vaccine. He had obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and she had a history of cardiac diseases. She had liver cancer and hemocirrhosis, and due to fluids in his parietal cavity, he was admitted to hospital. Subsequently, he tested positive. We prescribed an oral antiviral, and at that time, he did not have any upper respiratory tract symptoms. Our multidisciplinary team followed up on his conditions, and subsequently his liver failure led to multiple organ failures, and he passed away yesterday. The third patient was an 87-year-old male. He was unvaccinated. He suffered a stroke. He had hypertension and chronic renal disease, and on the 17th of July, he tested positive through RAT, and on the 18th, he went to a designated clinic. He had coughing and runny nose. We prescribed an oral antiviral. His condition was stable at that time. 10 days later, he went to an A&E ward due to fever, shortness of breath, and he had mucus. He tested positive, and the CT value was 26.3. His lung conditions worsened, and a heart attack resulted, and he passed away yesterday. The next patient was a 61-year-old male. He had seizures, and he also had dementia. He was bedridden, and he was often admitted to hospital to extract mucus, and on this 21st, he had low oxygen level, and he also had coughing, and he was admitted to hospital. At that time, an oral antiviral was prescribed. and physiotherapy was performed to remove his mucus. His fever persisted, and he suffered infections in his lungs and urinary tract. His conditions worsened and passed away yesterday. He received 2 doses of a vaccine. Like we said yesterday, for elderly patients, they often experience a rapid onset of symptoms. So for those who experience symptoms, they should seek medical attention as soon as possible, especially if they have chronic illnesses. That way, we can provide appropriate treatment, including oral antivirals. The weather in recent days has been unstable, and it is also rather hot, so it might be difficult for COVID-19 and elderly patients to see the doctor. That is why we suggest that they use our telemedicine services. Our HA Go app has a function to book an appointment at designated clinics, so one can reserve telemedicine services for themselves and their family, and the service is available every day. If medication is needed, we would arrange for the medicine to be delivered to the address of the patient on the same day or within the next day. So far, more than 3,000 patients have used the telemedicine service. We hope this service would provide convenience to COVID-19 patients. Over the past day, 227 patients recovered, including 194 who were discharged. 5 patients were detected through admission screening or in-hospital testing. 9 other patients and staff members in the same ward were listed as close contacts for staff members. Another 75 tested positive. Another 27 have returned to their posts. Meanwhile, we have an announcement at the Hematology and Oncology ward at Hong Kong Children's Hospital. 4 staff members, including 2 doctors, 1 nurse, and 1 patient care assistant, started showing symptoms on the 5th and 8th of August. Our staff members have to do RETs every day, and these wards accommodate patients with weak immunity, so our staff members would be tested via PCR twice a week. At the beginning, the test results were negative, but since these staff members experience symptoms, another PCR test was taken and some of them tested positive. We have performed PCR tests on all staff members and patients. No other members tested positive, and no staff member or patient were listed as close contacts. These 4 staff members who tested positive, some of them once took care of a patient who tested positive in the community in early July. We are still tracing the origin of the infections, and we are also conducting genome sequencing to investigate their relationships. That's all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Yesterday, the local infected cases number was 4,344, including 1,716 PCR test positive results and 2,628 RAT positive. And also we had 249 imported cases, including 212 PCR positive and 337 RAT positive imported cases. And also we have 4 reported deaths today. So the total number of deaths in the 5th wave is 9,341. Among the 249 imported cases, there are 133 cases caught at the airport, 106 found positive within 7 days in hotel and quarantine centers. and also 30 cases were identified after the patients have left the hotel and quarantine centers. 249 cases were from 47 places. The following 7 places have imported more than 10 cases. They are the UK 45, Philippines 22, India and the US 19, Singapore, Thailand 16, Nepal 14. The remaining 40 places have imported less than 10 cases. Today for care homes, there are 3 RCHE and 2 RCHD experiencing outbreaks. Some have to be quarantined, including 3 RCHE. They are 香海正覺蓮社 Buddhist elderly care home with 1 staff infection. 3 residents are under quarantine. Yan Chai Hospital, Lei Chan Yuk Sim elderly care home with 1 resident testing positive. 4 residents are quarantined. Dai Ngoi elderly care home in Sham Shui Po, 1 staff member and 1 resident confirmed positive. 7 residents are quarantined. Hong Kong Mental Health Rehabilitation Society RCHD 6 quarantine, 1 infection. Yin Yi Hin in Kwun Tong 1 infection of residents and 3 residents quarantined. For schools, today is Wednesday. 214 schools have reported 277 cases, including 211 students and 66 teaching staff. They are from 36 kindergarten or child care centers, 107 primary schools, 66 secondary schools, and 5 special schools. In the past week, 139 schools have reported more than 2 cases. Today, 4 schools have classes which have to be suspended for 1 week. The first one is a special school, Hong Chi Choi Lam San Guang School in Saigon, high 2A class, 11 students, 2 infection. The class has to be suspended for 1 week. Shen Kong Wui Dak Tien Li Xiu Kang Primary School in Kwun Tong, 3E class, 33 students, 4 infections. Hong Kong Baptist University Ancillary Kindergarten in Kowloon City, lower class A, 10 students, 2 infections. Tai Shan Chen Yuan Hei Primary School in Sha Tin, class 4B, 27 students, 3 infections. Now concerning the subvariants, we are still monitoring the situation. The latest update, suspected BA.4 or 0.5, the ratio is 13.1% among the total number of cases. Suspected BA.2, 0.1, 2.1, 7.5%. The remaining cases are still the prevailing BA.2, 0.2. Thank you. Now we will take questions. Please identify your media organization before you ask questions. The lady in the front. Good afternoon, Now TV. Now concerning the latest announcements that FDH can also enjoy the 3+4 arrangements during the 4 medical surveillance days. They can work as the homes of the employer. So if the employer refuses to allow the FDH to do so, will you arrange hotel for them? Now, how many people have been issued a red or yellow code, or have anyone who have been issued a red or yellow code entering premises requiring active checking? So the departments of the Labor Department has issued a press release. Now, on principle, FDH can complete the 4-day medical surveillance in a designated or in qualified hotel without reporting to the Labor Department. Well, I don't set the number of people having been issued a red or yellow code. Now, for inbound travelers, they would be issued the yellow code. For confirmed patients, starting 12 a.m. On the 9th, they would be issued with the red code. Any more questions? The gentleman at the back. Good afternoon, AM 730. About the deaths, the 75-year-old male, he was admitted to hospital on the 14th of July. So was he infected in the in the hospital? What ward is that? Now the 61-year-old male from a care home, when was he tested positive? Was he infected in the care home? Now, you said 3,000 people have received a video medical consultation. So what is the demographic statistic? And how many people were being sent to hospitals? Now, yesterday, the BA.5 was around at 12%. Today, the number has risen to 13.1%. So what about the trend in the past 7 days? The 1% increase within a short span of time, would you say that it is very quick? Now, the daily number of 12 or 13%, that is the percentage for the day. Now, in the press release, we would give you the past 7 days figure, because there would be fluctuation from day to day, and it is hard to account for the fluctuation for one day. Now, about the 2 death cases, the first one is the 75-year-old male. He wasn't infected in the care home. He attended a checkup, a follow-up consultation in a private hospital, and he was tested positive on RAT, and then he came to a hospital to follow up on the peritoneal fluid situation. The other elderly deceased patient was not infected in the care home either. He had a fever, so the staff members gave him a test, and then he was sent to our hospital for treatment. Concerning the test performed for consultation patients, we don't have the figure. Next question, the lady in the back. Good afternoon, HA01. Last week, there was a case, 90-year-old positive male, unconscious at home, and then passed away. So you said there is a consultation service available, so would you enhance the support for elderly people at home? Now, concerning the quarantine situation, there are people saying that the arrangement is chaotic, and they weren't allowed to leave even if they have completed the quarantine. So how would you improve the situation? Now, the 3+4 arrangement has come into effect on the 12th of August. There are travelers who have completed the 3-day hotel quarantine period. If they have completed the relevant tests and the procedures, they would be allowed to leave. But there are quite a number of them. Hotels will take time to make arrangements for them. So they would be allowed to leave on according to the arrival first in, first out basis. So today there are some 9,000 people who have been allowed to leave the quarantine hotel. From our record, after the positive results of the deceased patients, we have the patient support call service. Our colleagues have successfully contacted the deceased patients. Concerning the details or his follow-up actions, I don't have any information. Now, we have different services, including the patient support call, where our colleagues would actively reach out to elderly confirmed patients to see if they are feeling unwell. If they are, then we will arrange for a booking at a nearby designated clinic. If not, we would arrange video medical consultation service for them. So we will continue to review our services to see if we can extend the scope of service.
Next question, the gentleman on the front row. This is news. For the new 3+4 day arrangement for confinees who had stayed 3 days in a hotel already, they could be discharged early. And after the new arrangement was announced, it was reported that some of these confinees could not leave after 3 days. Can you give us an update on the situation? Has that problem been resolved for the 3+4 day arrangement? Were there any cases in which the confinees tested positive after they left the hotel? Some experts said conditions are ripe for Hong Kong to put in place a 0+7 day arrangement. What is your assessment on its feasibility? The 3+4 arrangement will be implemented from this Friday. For the current confinees, they would be allowed to leave in batches, but it does not mean that confinees can automatically leave after 3 days. Of course, they must complete the quarantine procedures, and it also depends on the manpower at hotels. The arrangement is based on first in, first out, and the confinees would be discharged batch by batch, and some of them might have to wait a while. Today, 9,000 confinees would leave. Yesterday, there were 4,000, and there will be more in the next 2 days. There are no statistics on people who test positive after leaving the quarantine hotels, but we do expect around 20% of the visitors or the leaving confinees to test positive later, but that will not have a great impact on the community, and the government will deliver updates when necessary. The gentleman at the back.
The first is, as 4 hospital workers at Children's Hospital tested positive, are there any follow-ups to be done? And for example, is there a need to tighten PCR test requirements for staff at hospitals, elderly homes, and other medical institutions? And also today, an expert suggested that for hospital workers given an amber code, they should do PCR tests every day to prevent outbreak in hospitals. So what do you make of that? Thank you.
Okay. So for the clustering of the staff infection in the Hong Kong Children's Hospital, at the moment, apart from the daily antigen test, which they have to be done before they come back to work, they have the enhanced surveillance, which means for every week, they have to do twice of the PCR testing. So because we are still thinking whether we should, for this particular group of staff, nowadays actually they are doing the daily PCR to make sure that whether there is any other confirming cases within this cohort of patient and staff. And for the resident home, sorry that I may not have any information for you. So whether for those staff who have the amber code to have a daily PCR test, we are still in the process of discussion. But I'm assuming that for those who have the amber code, they have to follow the government's suggestion, to which they have to have the PCR test to be done on day 2, day 4, day 6, and day 9. So whether there's the increase into the daily, whether we'll have extra the benefit, we're still in the process of discussion. And of course, just like what I've just mentioned, our staff, they have a very high vigilance. If they have any symptoms or even felt a little bit unwell, we strongly advise them to have the PCR test extra on top of the existing enhanced surveillance test.
下一題，左手邊後排嗰位女士。
Next question, the lady to the left on the back row, please. This is Hong Kong Economic Times. I'd like to know more about the cases at Hong Kong Children's Hospital. When did the medical workers test negative and then positive, how many patients were listed as close contacts, and the test results available already. Among the fatalities, there was an 87-year-old male. On the 17th, he tested positive. On the next day, he sought medical attention at a clinic and he was prescribed with an oral antiviral. But after day 10, his conditions worsened rapidly. Does it mean the antiviral did not work? Was his death related to COVID? By what extent would the caseload have to drop before we can move to a 0+7 quarantine arrangement according to the CHP? And can you deliver any updates on the cases of malaria? We saw 6 new cases of malaria. Last time we announced the total was 75. Now the total is 85. The government's quarantine or inbound travel measures would depend on many factors. For Hong Kong Children's Hospital, I currently have no information on the dates of the enforced PCR tests taken by our staff members, and on the 5th and 8th of August, they showed symptoms. That's why another PCR test was arranged, and as a result, we found that they tested positive. So far, no other staff members or patients were listed as close contacts. We are still following up on the cases to identify any possible links. For the 87-year-old male patient, on the day after he tested positive, he went to a designated clinic and we prescribed an oral antiviral. This patient was unvaccinated. Vaccination is an important means to protect one from infection or from serious complications. We believe oral antivirals would help according to clinical practice or literature. For this case in particular, the fact that the patient was unvaccinated could be a reason his conditions worsened rapidly. Next question. The lady at the back, this is Ming Pao. First, a question about the Hong Kong Children's Hospital cluster. Dr. Kwan said a staff member who tested positive, one took care of a patient earlier. The staff started showing symptoms in August. I'd like to know when that patient was admitted to hospital. Do you believe the staff member involved was infected by the patient, or did the staff member attend other gatherings? Another question for the CHP. For a residential care home, Shanghai Zhenggok Linshe, a few days ago, some staff members tested positive. So for the new case today, is there any connection with the prior case? The third question is about the red and amber codes. How can the CHP ensure that the newly confirmed patients are using the latest version of Leave Home Safe in obtaining a red code? Would the authorities proactively check these patients? For the passionate visit arrangement at the hospitals, would the current arrangements remain? For the cases at Hong Kong Children's Hospital, in early July, well, the patient was or contracted a disease in the community, but given the weaker immunity among these patients, between early July and early August, the CT value of the patient fluctuated, and that is common among patients with a weaker immunity. The patient was isolated, and we wanted to protect him from other infections, and that is why our colleagues would wear appropriate PPE when attending to these patients. We are still investigating any possible connections. since we have a lot of infections in the community, we are still investigating the possible links. We will announce any updates where available. For the hospital passionate visit arrangements for patients in critical or terminal condition, their family members would want to stay with them. That is why we put in place a special arrangement. We would accept a PCR negative result within 48 hours or a negative RET result within 24 hours. If the visitor has a negative RET result, we would allow a visit, and during their visit, we would remind visitors to observe our infection control measures, and they should refrain from coming into or having physical contact with the patients. For visitors who feel unwell, they should not visit a hospital. Instead, we could arrange a video visit service.
So if the time is too tight for a PCR test, it's all right. The visitors would be allowed in, and they just have to submit the PCR test results to us afterwards. So this is a very difficult time. We hope that the family members can spend the time with the patients. Concerning the Shanghai Chin-Kok Lin Association elderly care home is in the Northern District. In the North District, the previous case was back in April. This time, a staff member has come down with the illness. In terms of the red code and the yellow code, for the red code, the isolation or quarantine order would require the person concerned to install the latest version of the Leap Home Safe app. If the app is not up to date, the premises will not allow them in. Thank you. So if there's no more question, that's the end of the press briefing. Thank you.